Alrighty, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast, the fantasy edition. I am your host, Mike. I do apologize if you heard my noises, sniffling and whatnot while we were waiting for the show to start. I'm still learning how to figure out how to turn this mic off when I need to cough and whatnot. I'm going to get there eventually. Another thing I'm hoping to figure out is how to put people's chats up when they talk. We're going to see if I can figure that out today if we get any live viewers. So, to anybody new on the show, what we do here is we break down the upcoming UFC card. This week it's going to be UFC Vegas 55, and we're going to break it down from 2 points of view. We're going to break it down from a PrizePicks perspective. PrizePicks is another fantasy app available for many in the US, but not everybody just yet. If you don't have PrizePicks, I do suggest checking out Underdog Fantasy. It's the same exact thing pretty much, with a few differences, but it's the same thing. And it might be available in your state if PrizePicks isn't. And then the other thing we're going to talk about is DraftKings, obviously. You guys hear tons about DraftKings. I'll do my best. I have some charts and stats for you guys, but I say that the real gold here, the real helpful stuff, is the PrizePicks stuff that I do. Right now, no one really does these charts. No one's putting together stats that they share with the public, at least. And nobody's counting up the... We'll get there, but there's a category in PrizePicks for a fantasy score, whether they're going to go over or under the fantasy score. There's no historical data to see, okay, how many times has Hooper crossed this fantasy score, right? There's no way to see that. We're going to be able to see it because I count it all. I count it all up. I use their scoring criteria. Excuse me. I use their scoring criteria. I look at UFC stats for each fighter. I go through each fight and I calculate their score for that fight. So we'll have that to work with. And yeah, so we'll get right into it. I'll go over PrizePicks in general. I'll go over the 4 categories real quick because for people who are watching this weekly, you've heard this already a trillion times. But for anybody new, PrizePicks is an app that allows you to bet on fighters over under for things that you can't get on a sports book. For example, on a sports book, you can't bet over under Almeida's going to get 2 takedowns. That doesn't exist on any books that I know of or have access to. But PrizePicks allows you to do that. PrizePicks allows you to bet over unders on takedowns, significant strikes, fight time, which I'll talk about, I don't love so much, and takedown, striking. I forgot which ones I said. It's takedown, striking, fantasy score, and fight time. It provides all of those over-unders. For their fantasy score, it's a little different than DraftKings. There are subtle differences in the scoring, things that they score that others don't. Michael, sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. What's up, Michael? Thank you for coming in, saying Chicago, ? Not sure what you mean, but, for whether it's available in Chicago, I would Google it. I'm not sure. I'm a New Yorker myself, so I only know what's up here, and luckily we do have PrizePicks and DraftKings. I hope it works out, though, Michael. I hope it's available to you in Chicago. Now, let's get right into it, right? So, the first category, fight time. I don't love this one. Why? Because it's essentially just betting over/under on a book, right? You can already do this. For example, let's look at the first one, right? You got Kalarish and Hooper right under him. That's that matchup. So PrizePicks has it set at 14.75, right? So that's pretty much they're asking you, is the fight going to go to the distance or won't it? That's what PrizePicks is asking you. You go to the books, you can bet that as well. Or you can bet the over-under. I have that listed as well. It's right on the next column. And the books have it set at 12.5 minutes. And which is 2.5 rounds. Michael saying, no, you have Chance on your wall. Oh, Chance used to be my favorite rapper of all time until he released his latest piece of work, I'll call it. And then he no longer was my favorite rapper. But my girlfriend made that for me. She's quite talented, and I do like having it up. I still think that acid rap is one of the best pieces of music ever put together. So, yeah, I like Chance. Liked them better before, but anyways, right back into this. So, let's start breaking them down fight by fight, right? So, we'll look at Kalarish and Hooper first. You'll notice for for each fight, I have both fighters. I used to do just the one, because PrizePicks, if you look at the app, they list only the favorite for each thing, right? So to make it a little easier to understand, let's say for significant strikes, you'll notice that everybody here is a favorite, all of them. So that's the way they do it. They don't really include underdogs except for takedowns sometimes. Now, you can't really handicap this with only one side of a fight, right? You can't handicap fight time without looking at both people. You could have one person who's never going the distance fighting a guy who always goes the distance. If you look at only one of them, you're going to come to a really different conclusion than you might if you look at both of them. So we're going to be looking at both fighters, even though PrizePicks only lists one of them. And yeah, let's go through this. So the first one, Kolaris Hooper, PrizePicks has it set at, let's call it 15 minutes. Fight goes, fight doesn't. The books have this set at 12 and a half, 2.5 rounds. For Kolaris, he's hit the 15-minute mark every single time he's fought in the UFC, so 5 of 5 times. And then Chase Hooper fought in the UFC 4 times, and he's crossed this point 2 times. He's gone to decision twice, and he did lose both. So, just something to think about. Now, in terms of betting this, playing this, I personally wouldn't play it on PrizePicks. I feel like the line is decent enough where you can just play it on the books. Like, realistically, if you want to bet over, just do it on the book, right? It's minus 160. Yeah, that's not great, but better that than playing fight goes and then having to play it with another prop. Because the way PrizePicks works is you can't just play one thing. You have to play 2 things, right? So, for example, say I want to make a play with Reed over 74.5 strikes. And then Park over 60.5 strikes, right? I have to play them together. I can't do it separate, right? It's like a parlay. So, just worth mentioning. That's why I really don't like these fight times, because you don't have to parlay them. You can just go bet them on the books, right? So, we'll move on. I don't like this play. If I had to pick, I would go with the over, I guess, because I think these two are going to probably cancel each other out. Because I think Hooper has a decent shot at catching Kolaris, it's hard for me to get there and to bet this as the over, so I'm not touching it, but that's my lean. Next fight, Morales versus Medic. They have this line set at 9 minutes, so just under 2 rounds. And then the books have this at over 2.5 rounds, 12.5 minutes. So this is where it gets a little interesting. Morales, he's gone past that 9-minute mark 4 of 6 times in the UFC. And Medic, out of his 2 fights in the UFC, has never gone over, not even close, right? So, obviously, it kind of makes you think under, right? And I would go under, but that's only because I think Medic wins. And Medic has, like, I was going over this on my show yesterday. Medic, I think, has, like, 2 wins outside of the first round, and neither of them are in the third. They're both in the second. So, because I lean Medic, I kind of lean the under here. But, again, I'd rather just eat the chalk then and play minus 160 under on a book, right? If you think it might go over, if you think that Medic, if you think Morales can extend Medic, then, 9 minutes makes sense. You can play that over there. Personally, I think Medic wins, possibly. I like him. I played him decision, no action in terms of just a bet, but because I lean him, I lean under, but I'm not going to be playing this one either. Michael in the chat saying, so you want Hooper on DraftKings? Indeed I am. I found that I had an incredibly hard time finding salary relief and plays that I wanted to make in the lower level of the salaries. We'll talk about it later on the DraftKings portion of the show. But yeah, I will be playing Hooper more than I'd like. I'm just having a hard time finding replacements for him. So yeah, I will talk about that. Alright, moving on. We've got Holmes versus Amedovski. This one's set at 7.5 minutes, 1.5 rounds, exactly as it's set on the books. Holmes has hit this 2 of 2 times, and Amedovski in his 2 fights he's gone over 1 of 2 times. This one's tough, right? We haven't seen Amedovski in what, 2019? So 3 years we haven't seen Amedovski. Holmes, in my opinion, is still tremendously green. Tremendously green. I think that in a few years, against this Amedovski, he would spark him, and I'd be on the under all day. I'm still leaning under because Amedovski is Amedovski. We all saw how he put himself into danger in the dumbest way in his last UFC fight. And then before that, he he made what's his name? We just saw him. Damn it, I'm blanking now. I almost said Rakic by accident. I know that it's not Rakic. Blanking real quick. Jotko. Almost. I don't know how I mixed those up. But yes, Jotko was literally just throwing him all around. Holmes is supposedly a grappler. Not that we've really seen that. Not that he's shown that he's that good at it. Personally, for that reason, I would consider playing the under here. But I don't know about this one, man. I really don't. Holmes could grind on him, right? Holmes is big. Holmes likes to work on the fence. Holmes could technically grind on him, and it might take longer than a round and a half to get a finish, or there might not be a finish. I do think there's going to be a finish. I do think it's going to be early. I lean under, but I won't be playing under because, like I said, I don't like these spots. Also, my stream just did that thing again that it did yesterday where it kind of just blacks out for a second and then restarts my timer. So if anybody in the chat, Michael or anybody, could let me know that we're still good and going, that would be great. But I'll keep going until then. Next fight is the people's main event, my main event, Almeida versus Porter. So, this is one where I would possibly play it here, right? So, Almeida 7.5, they've set it up. It's the same as it is on the books. For the books, if you want to play the under, it's now. Thank you, Kiarix. Also, what's up, buddy? So, for Almeida and Porter, the books have it under -150. And I played that -135 before it went down, so just wanted to gloat a little bit. I like that line a lot. Because I like that line a lot, I do think this goes under. I really, really do. I think Almeida should smoke him. There's some worries with the size and whatnot, and if you tune into the Bet Elevator on Friday on the MMA engine, me and Lou Betcha go on at 8:30. I will 1,000,000% be talking about my Porter by decision hedge, so if you want to hear a psycho talk about Porter by decision, tune in on Friday at 8:30. But anyways, so yeah, for this one, I'll be short and sweet. Porter's gone over 3 or 4 times. Almeida 0 of 2. 2 very short fights for Almeida. I think more than likely that we are not going to go over this point. I don't think we're going to be going over 7.5. If you do think personally that Almeida is going to struggle with the weight of Porter, if you think that's the factor, I think you should look into playing the over. I really do. If you are like me and you think more than likely Almeida rolls and handles the weight, then, go under. I will bring up one point, right? I keep hearing, I like to listen to everybody's shows, and I keep hearing over and over again that Porter's this real heavyweight. Porter's a real heavyweight. Almeida's a real light heavyweight, could even be lighter, has fought at middleweight. Guys, are we just forgetting Maximov went up to heavyweight in his Dana White Contender Series debut on short notice and won the fight by doing precisely what Almeida's going to have to do, just wrestling him and holding him down, right? If Maximov can do it, and we just saw Maximov get sparked, I really do think that Almeida could do it too, all right? And we also don't know how much Porter realistically has off his back. We haven't seen that really tested. We know that he can grapple himself decently. I wouldn't say it's anything spectacular, but exactly, Kiarix. Kiarix saying, I want to see if I can stick your messages up. I need to learn how to do that. Nah, I don't know how. I'm going to have to learn one day. But, yeah, Kiarix saying Maximov fought some dude who was 265. That's exactly my point. Precisely my point. Because of that, I think this narrative of, Porter's a real heavyweight, I think it's being blown out of proportion. But that said, I am hedging with the decision, so obviously I don't think it's that out of proportion, but just something to mention. But we'll move right on, spending a bit too much time on random things. So here we've got the next fight, Njokuani to Todorovic. Njokuani and Todorovic's fight is sitting at 9 minutes for the under-over on PrizePicks, and then on the books it's sitting at 7.5 minutes, so 1.5 rounds. You can get the over from -160, and you can get the under from +130. Njokuani, super high on him this week. I hear doubts. I have doubts, but I'm very excited to see him continue competing. He's gone over this only one of 2 times in his 2 UFC fights, so 50% of the time, but in a very small sample. And then Todorovic, over 5 fights, he's only gone over 9 minutes twice. And sorry, I just tweaked there for a second. I was looking at something. So, personally, I think that Njokuani's size, strength, speed, straight striking is going to be a tremendous issue for Todorovic. I can't get over the fact that nobody in his camp, nobody around him, is saying, listen, man, you are super talented, you do everything really well, but you just keep doing this when you're fighting. Like, you can't do that. And why is nobody telling this guy? He goes into every single fight and he just does the same thing. He backs up like this. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to get you to losing only, getting you knocked out. And I think until he fixes that, he's going to be a liability against anybody with power. And now you're going to have somebody with not just power, but speed and length. I think it's likely Njokuani can get a knockout, and because I think that, I think we can go over that 9-minute mark. That's almost 2 rounds they're giving you. I'd much rather that than playing it on the books here. If you think it goes over, okay, go to the books. I think we have a chance of hitting under. Out of all the time props, this is probably my favorite one. This one and the Almeida one I just spoke about. But like I said, I don't play these on PrizePicks. I don't like it. But if I had to, this is probably one of my favorite ones. And then next we've got Pereira and Ponzinibbio. Ooh, this is going to be a banger. So this one's set at almost, let's call it 15 minutes, full fight. Fight goes, fight doesn't is what PrizePicks is asking you. And then we look at the sports books. They've set it at 12.5 minutes, 2.5 rounds. The over's minus 170, the under's plus 140. So let's look at the numbers. The numbers seem kind to the over, right? Out of Pereira's 7 UFC fights, he's gone the distance 6 times. Actually, no. He's gone the distance 5 times. I thought it was funny. He still hit this 6 times because one of the times he went 14 minutes and 30 seconds. So, just worth noting. Does that count? No, see, I'm trash at math. That actually doesn't count because 14:39 would be more than 14.5 minutes, not over. Okay, I'm getting too into the math. Regardless, we get the point. I think this is more than likely to go over, but I wouldn't play it because there's so many possible things to go wrong. Ponzi's been showing a few cracks here and there. I'm still a believer. I haven't played Moneyline here, but he's crackable. And Pereira is becoming not normal, but more normal of a fighter in regards to not going crazy and putting on dance routines before the fights start. So, he carries power. He's huge. His front kicks. So, Ponzinibbio's live to get KO'd. And then on the other side, I think so is Pereira. Pereira hasn't been finished in the UFC just yet, but we just spoke about the guy. Dusko knocked him out on the regional, so he's not invincible either. I wouldn't play this total because it's just too high, right? Why would you play fight goes, fight doesn't when, yes, it should, but there's big question marks. I wouldn't do that. I don't suggest it. All right. So we're out of the category I hate most. Let's have a drink for that. I've thought about completely just getting rid of that part and only covering the 3 sections that I actually like and play. But the whole point of this is to kind of give you guys stats and charts and data and just stuff to work with that you don't have otherwise. So until I find something better than what I provide, I'll keep it up. And so I'm thinking about starting to post these online as well. We'll see. Maybe I'll give them out to everybody for free. It'll be free no matter what. I just don't know if I want to put them up yet or not. Anyways, we're going to go to significant strikes now. This is as straightforward as you can get, right? It's like if you watch basketball and you bet basketball and you can bet, I'm not a big guy, Trae Young, my boy. You can bet him going over, under on baskets, right? So this is the same thing, except you're going over and under on how many significant strikes they landed. I said significant on purpose. It's important because there's a difference in the UFC. Most ground strikes are not significant. There are some, but not as many. On the feet, almost every strike is significant. as long as there's something to it and it's not just like a touch kind of thing, they count it as a significant strike. So just something to consider. The way I like to tackle these is I have a few angles. I talk about it every week. First, blanket wrestlers, we bet they're under. It's just the thing to do. Because they're blanket wrestling, they're going to have less opportunities to land significant strikes, giving us an edge. I also like hitting the under for people who spin a lot. Funky movement guys. Pereira would normally fit right into this, and his stats seem to support that. But you look more recently, he's putting up numbers like 107, 92. It's because he's straightening it up, and that's why he's not someone I'm going to be targeting that way. One other way to think about it is, for an over, is if you've got, let's say, obviously two people who won't go to the ground at all, or let's say you've got a grappler and someone with really good takedown defense, so you know you're not hitting the ground. If you're not hitting the ground, you can feel safer about playing somebody's over. So those are just some things I consider that I think about. And now let's get down to it. So first, you got Elise Reed. They've set her at 74.5 significant strikes. In her 2 UFC fights, she's only done it once, because in her other one she got 1 strike and then got sparked by Sarge. So I'm not going to play this, but I think it's live, and I think it's very live, honestly. I'm going much easier this week in terms of plays. I got absolutely demolished last week. We had such a good run going, and then this last week just killed me in everything. Fantasy, regular bets, everything. Last week was rough, but comeback season, so I'm keeping it small this week. And I just want to mention, in PrizePicks, they allow you to put up to like 4 or 5 people in a play, let's call it a parlay in a play. And if you do 4 people, it's times 10 on your money. I just want to specify, I almost never do that. I only do pairs of 2. And if I do something like that, I'll mention it. And it's always going to be a small play. So, yeah, I think Reed can hit this. And why? Because Sam Hughes is going to give her that fight, right? Sam Hughes is just going to be I'm trying not to curse, a poop-eating wild woman, and she's just going to be coming at Reed. This could be in danger if Sam Hughes actually chooses to wrestle, as some people are hoping she does. As someone with a bet on her, I'd love to see her do that. I just think she can also compete on the feet. I think a lot of people are kind of overrating Reed. Maybe I'm underrating Reed. We're going to find out this weekend. But I do think that this should go over. But there is that question of maybe she gets grappled by Sam Page, right? So that's one you want to be careful with. The next one's one I've already played. I do like it a lot, and it kind of fits my angle, right? The blanket wrestler. Kalarish isn't so much a blanket wrestler, but he is constantly against the cage. He's constantly in control time positions. He's constantly trying to get takedowns, and he's going to be going up against a guy who's going to be literally dragging him to the ground. I watched his last fight, and you watch people pull guard, right? And it's usually they just jump down and hope their opponent comes with them. There's 2 guys who really pull guard in a effective way that I've seen recently. Alexei Olenek and Chase Hooper. Excuse me. They're the only 2 that I've seen recently. I could be missing people 1,000,000%, but they're the most noticeable to me. And because I do expect Chase to be dragging him, because I do expect Kalarish to be pushing against Chase and giving him the kind of fight he wants, I think that this is going to, even in a win for Kalarish, I think this can easily go under. How can we go over? We can go over if somehow they end up on the feet. They stay there, maybe cancel out their grappling. It doesn't seem like Hooper's a person that makes that even an option, you know? But maybe if they do that with Hooper's terrible striking defense, it shouldn't be hard for Kalarish to cover that. I just think they're going to be grappling so much that it will be hard. And then if he gets subbed, then that number is not going to happen. Unless it's a late sub, right? And Hooper's live for a sub. So because I have all these possibilities, right? All this, I want to say equity, but I don't like using those fancy terms. So we'll call it opportunities. That's what we're going to call it. Opportunities. So I do like that play. I like the under Kalarish 51.5 significant strikes. I've already played it, and I'll give you guys my full plays at the end of this show, and we'll talk about it a bit then too. So next up, we've got Martinez, he's set at 70.5 strikes. 5 out of 9 times he's hit this in his UFC career. And yeah, I mean, the most recent time that he didn't hit it was when Davey Grant knocked him out. And then before that, he was on like, other than that, in his last 5, it was 4 of 5. And then the 66, 42, 40, 32, 47, those aren't as good already. But recently, he's been putting up high numbers here. Now, I think this is the perfect fight for him to reach a score a number like that. I think that he can go over 70.5 here. He's going to be throwing tons of leg kicks. I'm pretty sure those count. He's going to be throwing tons of kicks. Those count for sure. His output with the hands can be questionable at times, and I don't love that. But I think he does get a good output going. You look at his recent fights, like I said, 74 on Perez, 92 on Zviad Lazashvili. He's doing well on the feet, but also, you know, there are questions with the output, with the striking with the hands. He's such a big kicker. I don't know how I feel about that. And then Morales, like, he's going to bring it to him. He's going to give him the fight he wants. He's going to be super hittable. He's going to give Martinez opportunities to cover that number. I have concerns. It's a high number. Maybe a chin cracks here. It's entirely possible that somebody falls. So, because of those reasons, I'm not going to be playing it. I do lean the over, though. I do lean the over. Then we got the other Morales, Omar Morales. He's set at 40.5 strikes. He's covered this 3 to 6 times. And look, this is as simple as thinking, who do you think wins? If Morales wins, without a doubt, he's got to hit this. Unless he goes with his actual path of victory of grappling, which I really don't think he does. I think that 40.5, it should happen. If he wins the fight, it should happen. On the other hand, if he gets sparked by Euros, which I think is live, then he's not going to hit it. So because of that, because I think Euros has a shot, I'm not going to play it. But if you're already betting Morales, or if you're confident he wins, or even if you're just confident he doesn't get sparked, over could be a good look for you here. Next, we've got Almeida. He's at 29.5. He's covered this 1 of 2 times, 30 in his last fight. And see, this is a time where they did count significant strikes on the ground, because almost all of his strikes were on the ground here. But I also think it's because he's so big and strong, and he was winding up and really hurting his opponent, where they kind of had to count it, because it was indeed significant, right? That's how he finished the fight. You can't finish a fight with an insignificant strike. So maybe for a guy like him, it might be okay to forget the blanket wrestler kind of thing, right? I mean, then you look at his Contender Series fight, though, and then you're like, is that really the case? That's why these things are so confusing. Because there, he wrestled the entire time, too, and he only got 2 significant strikes. Here, he got 30. I think part of it is because here he was able to mount... what's the fella's name? I'm forgetting his name. He was able to mount the guy, and he was able to really get on top. And once you're there, then he was just letting it rip, right? So, I guess it makes sense. Can he cover this with Porter? Yes, I think he can. Especially if you think Porter and his weight are going to make this difficult for him, then sure. I just don't want to play it because I don't know. I don't want to play it because I think that Almeida can just take him right down and sub him very quickly, and at that point you're not going to get it, right? So, if Porter can extend this even maybe half a round, I see Almeida possibly covering. I love these low numbers at 29.5. That's a very low number. But because of his upside of finishing and his upside of possibly just blanketing, and maybe they're not counting his strikes this time as significant, then that's why I'm going to be sitting off of that one. Holmes, 30.5, hit this 1 of 2 times. The only time he hit it was in his UFC debut against Pickett, and in the fight before that, he struggled a bit against his opponent. I'm not going to lie. I believe it was Shante Barnes was the name. And, you know, Shantae's a similar opponent to Amedovski in terms of size, in terms of fighting style. I would dare say that Amedovski would probably beat Shante Barnes. So, I'm just not sure about Holmes here. I really think he's so green, and he showed so many errors. If he finishes Amedovski early here, you're not going to hit this, right? You're not going to go over. So that's a way to think of the under. If Amedovski wins this, Holmes is definitely going to go under because it's going to have to be an early KO, right? How does it get over? Holmes does his thing, uses his tremendous size. I mean, the guy's got, 6 inches in both height and reach, I believe, if not more. Push the guy against the fence, hold him there. Then you're going to have time to work. Then you're going to have time to land these strikes, right? 30.5 over 3 rounds. It's very unlikely not to hit that. It happens, but it's unlikely. So I don't hate Holmes over, but I don't want to have a lot of money on this fight at all because Amedovski's out for 3 years. Maybe he comes back from Sweden over here looking like Hamzat. I doubt it. I expect him to lose. That's why I'm not really betting either guy. But Holmes just shows so many errors too. He keeps his hands down. The fight could end early because of that. It's just too many things that could ruin either playing the over or the under, so I'm not going to play it. Park, 60.5 strikes. He's hit this 3 of 5 times, 60% of the time. And this is another one. I think it should go over. I think it should go over because they're both going to try to grapple, but I doubt they're going to be able to get each other down. Only thing holding me back from playing it is Anders. Anders is forward pressure and the way he'll lean on him on the fence. If Anders is just laying on Park against the fence and he's just leaning on him and pressing on him, Park's not going to have the time to land these shots. He's not going to have the opportunity to land 60.5 strikes, right? So it's just something to think about. Yeah, in his last fight, he only went 2 rounds and almost covered. Fight before that, he fought somebody who I think presents a similar issue in Tafan, and he was able to get 71. So look, it's live. It's for sure live. I just personally don't want to play it because I think Eric Anders is going to be much bigger, and I think he's going to be able to hold Park down against the fence, not on the ground, against the fence, and just make it hard to be able to get volume off. Look, if you think that Park's going to be able to keep that away, you should bet Park over. Park has a jab that he just uses nonstop. That jab will get you there. You just have to think that Park's going to be able to get off the fence. You think that, play the over. I think it's possible, not confident, so I won't play it. Next we got Ricci. She's at 49.5. She's hit this 1 of 2 times. Her last time she flew through this 62 strikes. And that's a pretty good example of how this could go, right? It could be very similar there. She was getting the woman down, Oliveira. She was taking her down, controlling her. On the feet she was landing. And she was able to cover this, even with a grappling heavy approach. What gives me pause here is that Viana, she's not going to use her grappling as a countermeasure to keep it up on the feet so they can strike. She's going to do that pull and guard thing, except she pulls guard like I don't like. I don't like how she does it. She doesn't do it right in my opinion. She just kind of drops on the ground. And she gave Hannah Cipher an entire round of control time because she pulled guard and then couldn't do anything with it. And yes, it's awesome when you can armbar Mallory Martin and Emily Quitmeyer in 1 round, but I just don't think you're going to be doing that to Ricci. So, because of those things, if Ricci's just on top, controlling her the entire time, and Viana is not getting up, of course Ricci's not going to cover this. They're not going to count Ricci's strikes as significant on the ground. Like, Almeida has a wind-up. Ricci has no reach. She's going to be just going like... They're not going to count it as significant. Maybe they will. She does put it... Like, you can tell she's putting her power into it. Hard to tell. So, it's a no play for me. Then you got Njokuani, 36.5. He's covered this 1 of 2 times only in his 2 UFC fights. And that's because in his last fight, he didn't have the opportunity. Sparked him. Same reason I don't want to play it here. If Dusko stays alive, this number will hit without any question in my mind. I just don't know that Dusko's going to survive, right? I really am not sure if the guy can even make it 5 minutes if he's running around like this against Njokuani. I really hope someone in his team steps up and is like, Dusko, you're really good. Just lower the chin, man. For the love of God, lower the chin. Like, someone needs to do that. But anyways, we'll move right on. I do think it goes over if it lasts. I wouldn't play it, though, because I think it might not. Pereira, 72.5. He's covered this 3 of 7 times. I spoke about this before. Normally, he'd be somebody that would fade. But it's a little different here. He's been picking it up. He's been doing things right. And I think this one's more than likely to hit. I do lean this way. I do kind of want to play it. 72.5. Ponzi's going to give him the exact kind of fight he wants. If anyone's shooting, it's probably going to be Pereira, even though Ponzinibbio took Grant down last time. Grant Neal. And did I just mix it up? Is he Grant Neal? Or is that the brother? Whatever. Anyways, I think they're not going to be knocking each other out. And because of that, 72.5 isn't a high number. Especially not for Pereira, who's going to be front kicking, throwing stuff like this, running. Like, he's going to be letting strikes go. So, I like that. I like the 72.5. I do like it. And then Holly Holm, I do believe that I've played this one as well. I don't remember exactly, but I'm almost positive that I did. And, you look at the stats, you're like, Mike, what is wrong with you? She's hit this 1 of 10 times, right? In her last 10% of the time. But I would respond, look at who she's fighting in the 5-rounders where she's got a better chance of hitting this, right? She's fighting champs. Fighting champs and either knocking out Rousey or losing to the other champs fairly quickly or dominantly. Recently, we really only have that one fight. That's that 1 out of 10. It's the most recent one against Aldana. But I think it showed us everything we need to know. Holm is just... She's great right now. She might be 40, but she's looking great. Her striking looks phenomenal. The work she does is so good. The footwork, the bursts, the combos, so good. And Vieira, for somebody with a BJJ black belt who's absolutely ripped, who's 10 years younger, you would think that she should just grapple Holm. And if she does that successfully, then Holm will never reach this number, ever. 85.5 is a tough number to reach if you're getting grappled. But she got 5 rounds to work. She's got, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, 73% takedown defense, I think, for Holm. And she grapples herself recently, too. So I really do think that Holm could pull this away. And I do think that the over on the significant strikes is a nice little spot that I've already played. Oh, right. This one's always super interesting. I'll start off by just... I'll go over the criteria real quick. How PrizePicks scores their fantasy scoring. I'll go over the main differences, which are just... DraftKings scores ground control. PrizePicks does not score ground control. That's the main difference. And then also, PrizePicks scores takedown defense. DraftKings does not. Why is the takedown defense relevant? I'll tell you why. It's relevant because if you've got somebody... Okay, say you want to play someone's under, right? And then say they have an opponent who's going to be shooting a ton. You have to consider the takedown defense of the person that you want to hit the under for. Because if they have good takedown defense, so a takedown defense is 3 points, right? Say they have good takedown defense and the person shoots 10 times on them and misses all of them. Even if the fighter you bet the under on loses... That's 30 points right there that they got just from takedown defenses. And that could bop your under. So it's just something to consider. And the other thing is the lack of ground control scoring. That's important because whereas somebody like Almeida in DraftKings would score a ton by just laying on somebody. Or a better example, Park, right? Park in his fight against John Phillips. I believe... Let me make sure I'm... talking about the right fight. Real quick. Right, so that was the third one down. And then we're going to go back and we're going to look. Third one down. Right, so 50 points in that fight for Park when he fought Phillips, and he took him down and controlled him the whole time. It was like a Khabib-esque performance, and he only got 50 points, right? Now let's pop over to our DraftKings chart real quick. And let's go to Park. Okay. And in that fight with John Phillips on DraftKings, Park got 127.7 points, all right? That's how different the scores could be. Because of the differences in the criteria. That's how different. That's like the best example I could possibly give to you guys. So, With all those things out of the way, let's get right into it. We've got Reed first. They have her set at 76.5. And let me open with this. My biggest angle here, it just bet against the guys you think lose, right? Remember I said PrizePicks, they only really list favorites. So if you got underdogs you're playing, just pick out the favorites and just play those. That's a really great angle. So Reed is the first time I'm hitting that angle. 76.5. I've already played her under on that number. She's hit this only one of 2 times. And look, it was a close call even in her last fight. She just barely made it. And I think she loses, or has a good shot of losing. I think she gets controlled. And I think that Hughes is the type of fighter where even if Reed wins, I think it's going to be difficult for her to get higher than, like, I'm going to predict, like, in a win for Reed, I'm going to predict, like, 57, 60 points if she wins, you know? So even in a win, I don't think she'd cover it. So I hit Reed under. I like it. I definitely like that spot. Kalarish under over is set at 84.5 for the score. He's covered this only 1 of 6 times, and I have already played his under as well. Similar story, guys. He's a blanket grappler, first of all, and what did we just go over? They're not scoring well. He's fighting a guy who... Look, Kalarish does have a finishing ability here in that I don't think he subs Chase, but I think he can KO him. I do. I just don't think it happens. If he does get the KO, he's going to cover this number, right? So I just realized I didn't go over the whole scoring. I'll do that real quick now. Strikes are 0.6 points per strike. So 100 strikes, 60 points. Takedown, 6 points. Sub attempt, 5 points. Takedown defense, 3 points. And then a finish in the first round is 100 points. Finish in the second is 75. Finish in the third, 50. Finish in the fourth, if there is one, is 35. Finish in the fifth, if there is one, is 25. And then a decision win is 20 points. And then you also get 12 points for knocking your opponent down. So, yeah, I'll be playing the under on Kalarish. I already have done it. I just think that, A, he can lose. And B, even if he doesn't, I think that he might not cover this. So I am going to be going the under here. I have already played it. Maybe I'll play it some more later too. All right, next we've got Jonathan Martinez. They've got him set at 82.5. And he's covered this only 2 of 9 times. And it's because high numbers like these are hard to accomplish without getting KOs and finishes, right? It's very difficult. You have to put up a very high pace. And like you look at his numbers, right? The 2 most recent times that he's covered this was his second to last fight, where he fought Zviad, and like I said, I think Zviad missed like 6 takedowns. That's 18 points right there that Martinez picked up and helped him cover. Without those 18 points, he wouldn't have reached it. And then his other one was the Frankie Saenz KO, so that one makes sense, right? Why he covered it. Look, this one's rough for me because I think Martinez wins, but I think that Martinez in wins sometimes doesn't cover this anyways. But I don't want to go under because I think that it's possible that he can KO Morales. It's possible that he can replicate Gutierrez's success with the legs. It's possible that he can catch him with a nice combo. He did knock down Davy Grant. So, because of those reasons, I wouldn't really want to play it under or over. Then we look at Morales. Let's remember this is Omar Morales, not Vince. I think it's so funny when we get 2 of the same last names. And then they put them in a row. But anyways, so for Morales, they set his fantasy score. Get this, guys. Let's look at this. Who sets these things sometimes, right? Morales, 86.5 they have him at. He's hit this 1 of 6 times. In 6 UFC fights, 1 time he's hit it. And that was in his, I believe it was a Contender Series fight, if I remember correctly. That was the only time that Morales has covered this. Even in his wins, even in his losses, he's never really getting there. I wanted to say not getting close, but that's a lie. In his fight against Shane Young, he did get close. So, personally, I'm going to play the under. I don't remember if I have already, but I definitely want to. Oh, I just got a flood of messages from the chat. I guess that maybe you guys sent them before and I'm only getting them now. But I'll read through them real quick. Michael saying, any worry on Medic's quality of opponents in Alaska? Big time, man, big time. There's a reason I'm not betting him money line. It's because if it goes the distance, I think Medic could very much lose the fight. I personally bet him decision, no action. I think that's his path. If he's going to win, it's going to be inside the distance. And that way, as long as Morales doesn't finish him, I get my money back if Medic doesn't win. But yeah, I agree with you, man. It definitely matters. The quality of competition there is terrible. The camps there are terrible. And yeah, he's in King's MMA now, but it takes time. Things don't just happen overnight, right? Kiarik saying, keep that chin high versus Chidi. Yeah, man, it's going to be a problem. Michael saying, most consensus pick is Chidi wins early. Is that the most consensus pick? I guess I've been mostly hearing people taking him. Mostly. Kiarik saying, dude, if Pereira is doing backflips and dancing pre-fight, I'm getting really scared for my money line bet on him. Yeah, I mean, I think a bet on him is a pretty good spot. I bet the other way, but I don't think he's really been doing that much anymore, so I don't think you really have to worry about that one. And then Kiarik's also saying, Vieira Judo Black Belt 2. Yeah, for sure, but does she reuse it? You know? She hasn't used it at all. Oh, wait. I'm mixing people up. Vieira. I was thinking of Pollyanna Viana. But honestly, Vieira doesn't really use it either. So, but, and then last, Kiarik saying the intern is getting fired for that line. Yeah, man. I'm very confused about it. I actually don't... I feel like I haven't played the Morales line yet. And I'm confused at myself. Because when we got to it here... That's why I love this show, man. I make these charts right before, and then when I get to go through them with you guys, it's like I find spots that I wasn't going to play before. So, yeah, I love that one. Anyways, back to it. Almeida, 115.5 points. He's covered this one of two times. Got close in his Contender Series bout. But like I said, they weren't counting some of his strikes as significant. They weren't counting the ground control that he was getting. And it wasn't enough to cover the 115. This one's risky, right? I think Almeida sparks here. I think he runs through Parker. But similar, like, to bring up something that I brought up earlier, right? When I was trying to combat the whole thing of Almeida fighting somebody who's a real heavyweight and Maximov having done that. The thing is, Maximov, he didn't run through the heavyweight, even though the heavyweight wasn't that good either. He just sat on him for 3 rounds because it was hard to finish a man that much bigger than him. So maybe it's going to be a little harder than we think for Almeida to get a finish. I don't think so, really. I kind of see him getting a takedown and then either ground and pound or arm triangle, and then you hit the score. But it's a little risky, right? It's a little risky, so this isn't my favorite spot to play. And then you got Holly Holm. Oh, my gosh. I've been mixing them up all week, Holmes and Holm. Anyways, Holmes, 100.5. He's covered this only one of 2 times. And again, he needs a finish, right? Obviously, to get a number this high. And he can get one. He can 1,000,000% get one. Amedovski's not good. We haven't seen him in 3 years, so it's hard to really be sure. But from what we've seen, he's really not that great. MMA Kansaganu. Thank you for coming in, bud, but I'm not really sure what you wrote. Oh, message is retracted now. Okay. Well, hopefully he sends another one. We'll get back to it, though. So for Holmes, yeah, I think he gets this. I think that Amedovski's not very good. I think that Holmes will probably finish him quickly. I don't really see this leaving the first round. But because he's so green, like, I don't want to bet on it. I feel like this might end up being one of those super greasy things where Holmes is hot for a sec and then slows down and then he's just a mess. My issue with him, why I'm not all over him this week inside the distance, is this. This is how he fights, man. Like, I get you're tall and it's hard to reach you, but it's just not a good idea. And yes, it's hard to reach him, and Pickett was able to do it because he's big, but Shante Barnes was landing on him very well, and Shante Barnes is the same size as Amedovski, so there's that. Personally, I think it should hit, but I don't want to play it. And then we've got Park is next. He's set at 87.5. He's hit this 2 of 5 times. look, I bet against him, so I'm not going to play it. And even if he wins, this seems like a difficult number for him to hit, right? Against Stefan, he got it, but by the skin of his teeth. Look at that, 87.6, and the number is 87.5. So it's close. And Park just doesn't have that kind of style that gives him many points under this scoring system. If he's getting tons of takedowns, sure, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Anders is huge and also wrestles, and I think they're going to be canceling each other out a lot. I think that more than likely in a win, Park also goes under. So I'm actually going to snag this for myself for later. I'll probably be playing that as well. All right. Then we got Tabitha Ricci. 70.5 is what they've set her at. She's covered this one of 2 times in her 2 fights. And look, first of all, the first time you kind of have to throw that away. Up a weight class against not just up a weight class, but against Manon Fiorot, who's an absolute beast and in my opinion a future champion. So in my opinion, no respect lost there. And look, this is another tough one, right? Ricci can score because A, sub attempts count. B, takedowns score you very well. C, Viana's going to be giving up those takedowns because that's what she loves to do. It's just, if she's going to be just on top, just putting that pressure, I wish I went back and counted Cypher's score, what Cypher scored against Viana. That would have been useful here. But I just worry that if it's just blanket top control, she's not going to be able to score the number. I think it's going to be close, so I don't suggest playing it, and I don't really have a good read one way or the other, although I do lean under, even in a win. But like 70 is not that high of a number, you know? If she puts out a good output with significant strikes, she should hit it also. It's a tough one. Maybe the over looks better. That's why I don't like it. And then Njokuani, they've set him at 102.5. Hit this one of 2 times. Again, this just comes down to, do you think he finishes Dusko? I won't be a broken record with the chin up. I think he does. I didn't play this just because I already have a ton betted on Njokuani regularly. But yeah, this is entirely possible. I just don't really like betting fantasy scores over. I really prefer to do fantasy score unders. I feel like that's the nicer spots. Kiarik saying it was cool seeing you on John Kelly's roundtable. Yeah, dude, it was an honor that he had me. I hope he keeps having me. I respect him hugely. I love his stuff, and it was awesome being up there. I hope that I get to come up again. So, MMA Kasanganu rewrote his message. Let's see if we can get it. MKF fantasy points is easier for me because it's head-to-head. Look for overvalued faves and undervalued dogs. They have Hooper, Anders, Medic under 31 fantasy, so you can go more, and the fave less. Is MKF fantasy a different kind of app? Am I missing something here? Because there's Underdog Fantasy, I know that one, and I know PrizePicks. And I think there was a new one that came out. Maybe that's MKF. I'm not sure. Let me know, MMA Kasanganu. I'm not sure what app you're talking about, but that does seem interesting. But moving on, we've got Pereira, 86.5. He's covered this 4 of 7 times. And this one's also a little confusing, right? Normally, a number like this is hard to reach if you're not knocking people out. But Pereira's been so just, I don't even know how to put it. He's just been putting stuff out, putting points out, scoring, doing things. He's really coming into his own. And because of that, in a win, I think he does hit this. Maybe he cracks Ponzi's chin. I think he has a great chance. MMA Kasanganu saying it is an app and it's called Monkey Knife Fight. First of all, that's an incredible name. And I'm going to write it down and I'm going to check it out after this. I'm careful listening to what people say in the chat because I totally had a Bisping moment and someone got me real good and I didn't realize until the show was long over. So I'm very careful, but Monkey Knife Fight sounds normal. Sounds like it sounds legit. Anyways, I will check it out. Thank you for letting us know, brother. So, yeah, the Pereira one, if you think he wins, I think you should play this. I bet Ponzi, so I sure hope that he loses. I bet the under here because I think he loses. But I see great arguments for betting the Pereira over. Kiarik saying Monkey Knife Fight's currently the third largest DFS company in North America, behind FanDuel and DraftKings. Maybe it's time to add it to the show if it's available to New York. I don't know how I missed that, but I'm excited. After this show, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna check it right out. Thank you guys, I really do appreciate that. And then so then we got Home. Home is set at 90.5. She's hit this 2 of 10 times, and I do suggest going under. Look, the reason I'm not going to play it, I say suggest under if you want to play it. I don't think it's a great play. I messed up there. I apologize. Because look, you look at her last fight against Aldana, 142 points against a woman like Aldana. It's because, first of all, she scored almost 100 points just in striking. She got like 152 strikes. And then she also got 5 takedowns, right? So she scored a lot there. She doesn't normally. You look at her numbers, she really doesn't normally. But we've been over this. 3-round fights is the reasoning for some of them. Other reasoning is she's fighting champs, and champs only are the ones that she's losing to. So yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, if I think Home wins, which I do think she wins, gotta lean over. But it's just, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a smart spot to me. So I won't be playing it, and I don't suggest it to anybody viewing now. Alright, and we're up to the last category of PrizePicks. We've already been here for so long. I do apologize about that. I'm working on my speed through the shows, but I also don't want to talk like this. Because I can, but I don't think it's a good look. So, still finding that balance of length. Thinking of maybe splitting up the 2 episodes of PrizePicks and DraftKings. Maybe just getting rid of DraftKings altogether. I'm still deciding, but we'll see. So for the takedowns, we've got a bunch of people here, but fewer than the other categories. So for Kalarish, they've got him set at... You know what? Before I start, I want to have in front of me who I have for the takedowns, because I already have a few takedowns plays, and I just want to have them out. Okay, I've only got 2 so far. Alright, so for the first one, Kalarish 1.5. He's covered this 3 of 5 times in his 5 UFC fights, so 60% of the time. And look, I think he hits this, right? Because he's going to be looking for the takedowns, and Chase will be like, hug me, brother, and then just drag him down. So you've got to think he's going to cover that, right? I'm going to personally bold that, because now that I'm saying it out loud, it does seem tremendously likely. It is normally Chase, the one looking for takedowns, but we've got 2 BJJ black belts here in the octagon against each other, and with the way that Chase pulls guard, I'm fairly confident that Kalarish can get those 2 takedowns. And he sells out for it too, you know? Then you got Morales. They set him at 1 takedown. He's only covered this 1 of 6 times, and that was against Shane Young, right? And Shane Young was finding success by pressuring Morales, and that's why Morales felt like he had to shoot. So it's possible he shoots here. He's training at Sanford. He's got a good gym. They're going to game plan well, hopefully. Medic, he was getting taken down in the regionals by guys who, like, I bet there's a good amount of people on MMA Twitter who could take some of those Alaska fellas. But yeah, for those reasons, I do think Morales could get the takedown. I just don't want to play it. If they gave it to me at a half, 0.5, I'd play it, because then you just need that 1 takedown. But at 1, you know, you could get your money back if it only gets 1, but then you're not winning if you only get 1 takedown. And I just don't know if he's going to need 2, if he's going to get 2. Just really not sure. So definitely one of my least favorite takedown plays. Almeida 1.5. I mean, you know, I had to play this. I played this. Only reason I don't suggest like putting it into all your plays is because he might only need 1, right? He might only need 1, and then he'll finish Parker Porter. But I like the spot. I like 1.5. 1.5. I think there's a decent chance that he needs 2 takedowns. He needed at least 2 in both of his fights, so I think it's a good spot. Holmes 1.5. He's hit this 1 of 2 times. I spoke about this earlier. He should be able to do it. but he's very dependent on the fence to do it. He doesn't shoot double legs, he doesn't shoot singles really. Well, he'll use a single off the fence, but he needs the fence. He needs it, and that's what he uses. So I don't like it. I think he gets it, but I think it's going to be too greasy for my taste. All right. Then we've got Park at 1.5. I won't be playing this. He's hit it 3 or 5 times. I kind of mentioned this earlier already. I think that Anders is very big, and they're going to be pushing each other back and forth, maybe getting takedowns on one another. But I think they're both going to kind of end up staying on the feet because of their grappling games. So I'm not sure that I love a number like 1.5. Ricci, 2 takedowns. I have already played that. And for the same reason I want to play Kalarish. She's fighting somebody who's going to pull guard. And if she's not pulling guard, she's going to give up takedowns. And another thing I want to mention, Ricci loves to look for the trip off a kick, right? Off a caught kick. What's one of Viana's main strikes? Kicks. Kicks and kicks and kicks and kicks and kicks. And she's decent at it, but that's not her main thing. So what does that mean? She can slip up and get taken down. So I really do think we're going to get the takedowns here. I think that 2 is a very solid number, and I think that Ricci's going to be able to cover that number. And then the last one is Pereira. 1.5 is what they set it at. He's covered this 4 of 7 times. Excuse me. I just wouldn't, because Ponzi's got good wrestling too. He's got good takedown defense. If I remember correctly, I want to say it's like 60% or something. I don't have that in front of me right now. Excuse me. And Ponzi can get his own takedowns too. He took down Jeff Neal. Grant is the brother. Messed up earlier. But yeah, Jeff Neal is the one he fought, and he took him down. So I don't really want to play Pereira 1.5. I would even maybe look at the under for that one. But yeah, so that's it for PrizePicks. I'll read off my plays. We'll jump into DraftKings. We've been here way too long, so I'm going to fly through DraftKings. Like I always say, I think I have good input. Obviously, I work very hard on this stuff, so I sure hope that I have good input. But when it comes to DraftKings, it's very developed already. There's tons of stats out there. And I do suggest a show on Pub Sports. It's with some of the best guys in the game. DFS by the numbers. Uncle Weezy. Luke is over there from, I believe his show is Sparring with Reality. And then Monk, one of the best guys that there is when it comes to DraftKings stats. They kill it with their DraftKings show. I do suggest checking them out. I use them too. So definitely check that out. DraftKings isn't my forte just yet. The only reason I do it on the show is to provide you guys some charts, some stuff to look at, and maybe something someone else hasn't mentioned yet, right? So we'll go through that super fast. PrizePicks is really my thing and the main point of this show, I would say. Alright, so if you've seen my stuff before, you notice I changed up the chart a bit. I got rid of the takedowns and the control times. It's just because I can look that up and whatnot, and it just takes up a lot of time. So I'll move through it quick. If it's somebody I'm not playing, I'm not going to make a case for or against. I'll say, I'll say why I'm fading them, and that's it. And then, yeah, we'll try to move through this super quick, right? So Almeida. Well, before I start, I'll bring this up. I think most people who watch these kinds of things know the difference, but I'll do it just in case. 2 types of games in DraftKings: GPPs and cash games. GPPs are tournaments where there's tons of winners and tons of prizes, and you win a prize depending on, how you do, as is with most tournaments. In a cash game, there's a specified amount of winners, obviously, but no matter how much, say me and Kiarix are playing, right? We're both on the same cash game. And let's say Kiarix scores higher than me, but we both score high enough to be in the upper tier of that game. We're going to be winning the same amount, because double up, the maximum you can win is double your money. So you just got to place high enough, and then you double your money. So what difference does that make, right? That makes a big difference, because when you're looking at your lineups for cash games, you might be more hesitant to put somebody who's got big finishing ability, but also has a big ability to be finished themselves. You might think twice about that. Whereas in a GPP, you're going to want only finishers, because if you've got any chance of that top prize, you're going to need 6 finishes or 6 incredibly high scores, and ideally you're going to want low ownership in terms of tackling fighters that other people might not have, which will allow you to go higher than them. Today I saw some crazy thing for a basketball DraftKings thing, and apparently the prize was 150K, and it was one of those games where you can enter up to 150 entries. So everybody split the pot. A bunch of people hit it, and they only got like 800 something bucks out of a $150,000 pot. So that's why in GPPs you're looking for low ownership spots. I saw somebody questioning this on a YouTube video last week. They were like, where are people getting this? Like, where are these numbers? Are they making it up for ownership? Yeah, we're guessing. It's an educated guess at best, based off things of like, you know, who are popular fighters. At the end of the day, there's a lot of casual sports bettors, and a lot of them on DraftKings too, and they're going to lean towards the more well-known fighters. Even more casual fans, they might lean to people who they have seen win recently, right? So just stuff like that, but I forget the point that I was trying to make. We're going to move on and just go on with the show. So, Almeida, 9,400. Only one score so far because there's no scores for Contender Series. He scored 118.4 points. The implied probability of a finish on that fight is 78.5%. And yeah, I mean, I have Almeida everywhere, right? I've got him on every lineup. I'm very confident in him. I really hope this doesn't come back to bite me. If you look at my Bet MMA page, it's just a mess of Almeida bets. I did hedge with my Porter decision, but yeah, I have Almeida on GPP. I have him cash. I think there's tremendous upside, grappling, finishing upside. And, you know, my one concern is if it gets extended and maybe he doesn't become worth that price. But I think this isn't PrizePicks, right? Here, extended top control is going to score. So I think he still might be optimal at 9,400. Kiarix is saying these DraftKings games are crazy when a fighter drops out in everyone's lineups. Seems to be happening all of the time. Yeah, we've seen it twice in a row with Alexander Romanov and Joe Lozon, and both were problematic. The thing with Romanov was it was funny because his ownership was like 84 or 85%. They do put out actual numbers for ownership afterwards, and he was owned like 80, I want to say it was like 84, 85%. And that meant people could still win stuff, you know? Obviously, the GPPs were going to all go to whoever didn't play Romanov. But on cash and stuff, like, you were okay because everybody played him. The Lozon thing was a bit worse. I got butchered because of that. Because I did target both Lozon and Cerrone. And that meant that any lineup where I targeted that fight, like, I got cooked. So, yeah, that sucks. I hate that when that happens. And I will say that my biggest thing with DraftKings is I do not understand why for basketball you can change the lineups. Like, for example, for basketball, you can play for a whole night of games, right? And if a game is later than the other games, you can have players who started already in your lineup and players who haven't. And for the players that haven't started yet, DraftKings allows you to take them out and switch them. So why the heck can't we do that here? And we're not even asking to be able to switch it once the fights start. We're just asking if a fight gets canceled, can we please switch it out? I feel like that's a pretty fair thing to request. I hope that they change it soon. I hope maybe we need to start giving them some more backlash. Obviously, no one's going to be boycotting DraftKings, so that's not going to work. But I really do hope that eventually we're able to change it. Sorry, I just had a text about work tomorrow. Alright, we'll keep going. Spending a bunch of time chatting. Alright, Holly Holm, 9,100. I'll be quick, short, and sweet. Fade. She's not going to score high enough to be worth that. Park, 9,000. Average score 71. Implied probability of finish 40%. Again, fade. He'd be a good cash play, I think, but his salary is too high, and I feel like you can just play Anders then if you want to target that fight for cash. Martinez, I like him for cash more so than GPPs. Oh, shit. I'm not going to be able to go all the way down. Sorry, just checking something out. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I like Martinez for cash much more than GBPs, but for cash games, yeah. And then for GBPs, I don't like him just because he doesn't finish very often. Njokuani at 8,700. Yeah, I mean, he's one of my more targeted fighters for GBPs. I have him in a cash game. I don't think he gets finished, so that's why I think he's okay for cash as well. And his finishing upside is just so high. Kalarish is a huge fade for me. You see, even in wins, he's not often scoring that high. And at 8,600, it's unlikely with scores like that he's going to be optimal. How is he going to win here with that kind of score? Look, it's not like laying and praying on Chase is going to be easy. Chase is going to be moving, trying to set up arm bars, all that. So it might be hard to rack up the control time needed to get a good score for Kalarish. It's not the worst person to play, I guess, but I'm personally fading. If I'm going to target that fight, I'd rather target Chase. Reed, fade for me, big fade. Again, I might as well just target Hughes, right, for cash games. And Reed isn't going to finish Hughes, so why play her for GBP? Then you got, let's see. Then you got Morales. This is Omar Morales, not Vince. Yeah, another fade, right? This is a guy who doesn't get finishes, so why would you play him? For cash, you could, but cash, it's not a good idea this time around because he's fighting a finisher. So, it's a dub for me on Morales. Ricci, 8,300 salary, implied probability of finish on the fight is 43.5, and she's a great play. I think she's a great play. I'd be weary playing her on cash only because you have to worry about the sub. But I think that she's probably a good option for both. She's a BJJ black belt and a good one at that. And I don't think that Viana is going to submit her. And I think that because of the guard pulling that I've talked about all night, I think that Ricci's going to be just laying on her, taking her down, and scoring a lot. So I love Ricci here. I love Ricci as a play. I'll cover these two at the same time. They're essentially the same to me in terms of how I'm going to play them. I played both in cash because I think they're both going to last. And I think they're both going to have opportunities to put up good numbers against each other. And at the salary range, it's a good spot. On GBPs, my exposure to them is minimal. But I wanted some because, like I said before, I think both of these guys do have a chance to crack a chin here. I just don't think it's the likeliest outcome. Then we got Viana. Look, I have her for some GPPs because that finishing upside is always there. But you can't play her for cash. You really just can't. Her floor is going to be terrible. She can't score off her back unless she subs her. Medic, 7,800. Don't play him for cash. He's extremely unreliable right now. But for GPPs, you kind of have to. He's a top-loaded finisher. Loves finishing in the first round. It's where he gets his finishes. You've got to think, if he wins, he's going to be optimal. At 7,800, you've got to think. So, yeah, I'm all over Medic on GPPs. Don't want him on cash, though. Hughes and Hooper, I'll cover them at the same time. Actually, no, I won't. Hughes, I used only for cash, and I explained why. I don't think that she has a low floor here at all. I think her floor is fairly high. I don't think Reed finishes her in any way. And I think Sam can win, you know. I don't know if she gets a finish, but for a cash game, she's very needed salary relief. And then Hooper at 7,600. I like him for both. I like him a little less for cash because I am a little worried about how the grappling stuff is going to work out. But like I mentioned earlier, there's so few spots here for the underdogs. So I was kind of forced to play Hooper more than I would have liked. Todorovic, I don't want anything to do with him. Because of the things I said with the chin, I won't keep repeating it. And then Amedovski, I have him. He's my dart throw. I have him on GPPs. Look, he's got a good one too. He's got good power. His striking is okay. Holmes is very green. He's very, very green. And, you know, at 7,400 with the first round finish live, you know, you got to think that Amedovski's worth playing on GPPs at least a bit. Morales, this is Vince now, at 7,300. You know, he might be a good play at cash. I'd be a little worried with the legs and whatnot. I keep hearing this leg narrative, and I feel like because we keep saying it, it's not going to be an issue. But I guess it's something to think about. I haven't played him on GPPs. I don't see a point. But I guess in cash, he could be a good angle. Anders is another good salary relief in cash at 7,200. I don't think he gets finished here, and I don't think he gets ground controlled either. I think he'll put up enough where on cash he can put you on the board. And with that 7,200, you'll have more money to spend upwards. Vieira, 7,100. I was at first very high on her in the cash, but then I was like, why? You know? It's like, what if she isn't able to score much? The issue is, like I said before, we're top loaded a bit in this slate, so we need salary relief, and at 7,100 she provides a lot of that, and I sure as hell ain't playing Parker Porter. So yeah, I don't hate Vieira for cash either, but I wouldn't play her for GPPs. I don't see a finish here for her. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's the show. I'm going to go over my prize picks real quick now, and then I'm going to be checking out the Monkey Knife Fight Fantasy after this, because that caught my attention. I don't know how I never heard of it. But, alright, so my prize picks are, we've got a play with Felipe Colares under 51.5 significant strikes. Holly Holm over 85.5 significant strikes. It's play 1. Play 2, Tabitha Ricci over 2.5 over 2 takedowns. Mitchell Pereira under 86.5. And the last play, Jonathan Almeida over 1.5 takedowns. Elise Reed under 76.5 fantasy score. That's a wrap, guys. I'll see you on Friday on the MMA Engine. We're going to break down the card from a way more fun perspective, me and Lou. Watch me come up with crazy props. Watch my boy Lou come up with crazy props. And